Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to this week's Friday Reads, where I talk about everything I read in the last week. I let you know what I am currently in the middle of, and we also talk about what I think I'm going to be getting to in the next week. Now this last week was a little bit odd because over the weekend, I read so much. I was absolutely on fire, and then Monday hit and I just stopped reading. In the last 4 days, I think I've read like 50 pages. It was so very strange. I just didn't have a ton of time in part. And then when I did have time, I was just kind of reaching for other things. But I did actually finish a few things. I also DNF'd a few things. So let's go ahead and talk about those. So the very first thing we're going to talk about is my DNFs. And the first one of those is Mask of Shadows by Lindsay Miller. So this is a young adult fantasy, and in it we're following our main character of Sal, who is a thief. But there is an opening in the Queen's group of assassins, and so Sal decides that they want to try out for that opening. And when they go to try out, they find out it's a competition to the death. And so now they have to survive. And the story goes from there. This felt a little bit amateurish, I will say that. Now, also, I've kind of burnt out on what YA fantasy, so for me to really be interested in it, it has to either be really, really well written or really unique, and preferably both. And this was not really either of those things. I don't think it was bad. I think that it just kind of suffered from like debut novel kind of things. I don't actually know if this is a debut novel, but it felt like a debut novel. So, I mean, it's just the kind of thing where like sometimes the sentences wouldn't be very clear, and so we'd have these pronouns where I'm like, I don't know who they're referring to. Or, the very first chapter, I have some issues with the length. I feel like it either needed to be shortened and more concise, or it needed to be like a couple of chapters and really dive into it kind of thing. Just those like little quibbles where it's not like make or break territory, but it's just kind of affects your enjoyment. And then because it also felt a little bit like where we were going to head in this duology, because this is the first book of two, felt very generic. And I was just like, I'm okay with that. So I went ahead and DNF'd it at page 22. And then the other book that I DNF'd is All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. This is a young adult fantasy as well. And in this, we are following our main character of Amora, who is a princess of this island nation. Now, in this island nation, there is magic, and each island is responsible for a different kind of magic. And the royals are in charge of soul magic. And so Amora, on her 18th birthday, has to actually do a demonstration of this soul magic to basically prove that she is worthy to be the heir to the throne. Only she completely messes up her performance, and it changes the entire course of her life. And the story goes from there. This one, actually, I think was pretty well done, but is absolutely not for me. So this is a very atmospheric, vibes heavy kind of read. I don't think it was all vibes, no plot, but I do think that it's pretty atmospheric. It is well done. It's just I don't tend to like go for the atmospheric reads. And also our main character is pretty arrogant, a little bit understandably so. And also she's very much in that phase of like, I want all the information and I want all the rights, but I don't understand the responsibilities that come with either of those things. Now she is going to get smacked down because she's going to like completely mess up her performance, but that's also not a storyline that I am particularly interested in. So this is not bad. I actually think that if you're interested in it, please go ahead and give it a try, but it's just absolutely not for me. So I DNF'd it at page 26. So getting into the things that I did actually read, we're going to start with War Prize by Elizabeth Vaughn. So this is the first book in an adult fantasy romance. It's a trilogy, and it's following all the same characters. But in this first one, we're following our main character of Lara, who is the half sister to the king, and she's also a healer. And the warlord of the enemies witnesses her aiding some of his injured soldiers, and so he demands that she be his war prize. Now, if Lara decides to do this, it would mean ensuring a peace treaty, like a true peace treaty between these two nations, and her country desperately needs that. But obviously that would mean giving up everything that she knows and being given to this warlord. And the story goes from there. Now, what I will say about this is this is a serviceable, pretty, and fairly enjoyable novel. I don't think it's the best example of a warlord kind of romance, but I think that it was done well enough, and like I enjoyed my time with it. It's like the warlord character is pretty like stereotypical, but I didn't really find that I minded it. Lara herself is kind of, I admire her when she's in her healer role, but occasionally she'll just be kind of really stupid with everything else. But it's okay. Like, I found it bearable because the story kind of just like smacks her back down when she does something stupid. So that like made it more bearable. The romance plot was a little bit de-emphasized in this. It just became part of the blend of different plot lines we got going on, which is actually really nice. Like, it's still very much present. It's still very much a romance, but it's not really a heavily emphasized romance, which I found to be really interesting, and it worked well for me. But the biggest problem that I had with this book is that when Lara goes to the warlord, she believes she's being given as a sex slave. And so there is this threat of sexual assault that is like very present through the vast majority of this book. I will say there is no rape, but it's like, it's still there. The threat is still there. Lara still believes that this is going to happen. And so it didn't ruin my experience, because like, first of all, this is a reread, so I knew it wasn't going to happen. But like, I also could tell that he was like not that kind of dude. Like, we're given clues in this book to know that he's not that kind of person. But it still kind of soured the experience to some extent. So I didn't love it. I liked it. I had a good time with it, but I didn't love it. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. And then I also read Sweep of the Blade by Ilona Andrews, the fourth book in the Innkeeper Chronicles series. Just completely forgot the name of the series there. But that is an adult urban fantasy series, maybe sci-fi, could be argued. This one definitely more leans, honestly, it could be, I don't know. Anyway, in this book, we are following Maud, and Maud is going with Arland to his home planet to determine if maybe she wants to marry him. But it's, of course, never quite that easy. She has to prove herself to his family, while there is also all kinds of political things happening when they arrive. And the story goes from there. I really, really like this character. I like this character. I like this book. I liked this plot. I just think it was Ilona Andrews at their best. It was such interesting world building. It was just an interesting plot. We have this lovely, competent female character. We got to see Maud's thoughts on Dina, since Dina was the narrator for the first 3 novels. It was really interesting to see what Maud thought of Dina. And I just think that this was overall like a really well executed book. If you've been reading this series, this is a really, really good one. And generally I actually don't, and this is kind of a romance, and I don't always like romance where there's kids involved, but I really like the kid in this one. I think Helen is just absolutely lovely. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't actually have a lot to say because I just think it's really, really well done. And, like, again, if you've read the previous books, you'll probably like this one. So I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. And I'm a little sad that I only have the novella left before I'm completely caught up with this series. So, yeah, lovely. So now we are on to the things that I am currently in the middle of. So we're going to start with the one that I'm reading for the Magical Readathon, and that is A Local Habitation by Shauna Maguire. This is the second book in the October Days series, which is an adult urban fantasy series where we're following our main character of Toby Day. And she is half fae, half human, and she frequently ends up getting thrown at oddball problems because she somehow is the one best suited to solve them. In this particular one, Toby ends up on a diplomatic mission to a local independent county in Ferry to see what is going on because nobody has heard from them. And of course, when she gets there, things appear to be hinky almost immediately. And the story goes from there. This is a reread. I like this book better than the first one, but this is still not my favorite. I end up yelling at the characters quite a bit because the entire cast almost is just so stupid. They end up making so many stupid mistakes that I'm just like, y'all, I can't handle this. I cannot handle. Things get so much better after this book, and I know it. I just have to get through this one. I know that this will be made better because I'm able to talk to a friend who, about these books, and so I'll just complain to her. I'm only on page 60. I'm only on page 60 out of 377, so I've got a ways to go. But it's like, I love this series. I love so much of what we do in here. It's just the parts where people are being stupid kind of seem to overshadow basically everything else that's good in this book. So yeah, I'm currently in the middle of this one. I'm going to probably try to run through it pretty quickly just so that I can get to the next ones, which are a lot better. And then the one that I'm currently in the middle of for my DNF project is Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon-Ha Lee. And this is an adult fantasy where we're following our main character of Jebi, who is taking the test to try to be... It's like a test from the Ministry of Art to try to get a job with the ministry doing art. And instead they are approached by the Ministry of something. It's the military. And Jebi would then be responsible for painting the symbols on the automata to that make them come to life. And so they take the job only to find out that things are not quite as they seem, and so they have to make some decisions about if they're going to be complicit in some of these things. And the story goes from there. I'm only 22 pages in, and I mean, if you with the other DNFs that I've already had, that would be where I DNF this one. But actually, I'm liking it so far. It doesn't quite have me gripped, but it has the potential. So I feel like with Phoenix Extravagant, this is going to be a book that either I read the whole thing because it does turn out to be really good, or I end up DNFing it around a page 100. It might be until a page 100 it may take me until page 100 to figure out if I actually like it or not. But so far, I'm on page 22. I am enjoying it well enough. It's interesting, and yeah, I don't have much else to say about it. Which brings us to, what am I reading next week? Now, obviously, Phoenix Extravagant and A Local Habitation will be top of the list. I really want to try to get through both of these. With Phoenix Extravagant, it's really, get to page 100, determine if I'm going to DNF it, and if not, then finish the book. But then A Local Habitation is just run through it, because once I run through this book, the rest of the series is just so much better. But these are the top of the list, And then the books that I'm reading for the readathon, not Rosemary and Rue, but there is a short story in the back called Strangers in Court, and that's one of the things I want to read next week. I also want to read Sweep with Me by Alona Andrews, the novella in the Innkeeper Chronicles series. Once I read this, I will be caught up with the series. And then also Vision and Silver by Anne Bishop. This is the third book in the Other series, which I started reading last year and then just never continued on. So I want to finish out that reread. So got to continue on with number 3. And then what I have out from the library for my DNF project, these are the ones you are the most likely to see. I still have Dark Shores by Danielle L. Jensen, which is a YA fantasy, I believe. That's all piratey vibes. I also have Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. I think this is also YA fantasy. I'm not entirely certain. And then I have Blaze Wrath Games by Amparo Ortiz, YA fantasy. And then the last one is Fortune Favors the Dead by Stephen Spotswood, which is actually a queer historical mystery, kind of homage to Sherlock Holmes and Watson. I don't know. This screams like every part of that sounds amazing, except for the fact where it's a male writer. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. I don't know if there's just a ton of male writers who do not know how to write women, or if I'm just amazing at picking out all the ones that are terrible at it. But this has me very worried. I'll be hopeful that maybe this is actually good. I don't know. Anyway, those are the things that are the most likely to appear in the next week. Hopefully I can actually get to all of those things, but if it's anything like this last week, who knows? We'll see. You'll see in the next week. But that is all I have for this video. If you have any thoughts or feelings about any of the books that I have shown, please leave me a comment down below, or you can let me know what you are reading this week. But that's all I have. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to, and until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!